Welcome back, everyone. I'm Carrington-Russell, Australian award-winning author of Kick-Butt Heroines in Dark Romantic Worlds, and I have a very special guest for you today. We are talking to 11-time USA Today best-selling author with over 50 books published and 2 million books sold, known for her elements of fantasy, romance, paranormal, and mystery. We are talking to the one and only Elizabeth Hunter. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much.
I'm so excited to have you on. Sorry, too. My dog started barking. I got a little bit distracted, but
You know what? You might hear mine in the background too. So
fantastic. We've broken the dog seal. I love it.
dog friendly. Yep. It's a dog friendly broadcast.
I am so excited to have you on here because you have been in the industry now for quite a long time. I think you said 2011, so
Yeah. So 13
13
years now.
years. Wow. You've
Yeah.
achieved
October
a
it'll
lot.
officially be 13, my 13-year publishing anniversary.
What are you doing to celebrate?
I need to do something, right? I don't have anything planned, but I should do something because 13, right? It's a lucky number, particularly in paranormal romance. So I've gotta do something. I'll have to figure out a big giveaway or something like that.
Yes, yes. I love the sounds of this. Well, I'll be keeping an eye out for that. I would love to briefly go back to the start of your journey. Like, what did that look like? Why did you even want to write in the first place? And how did you find publishing for the first time?
It was actually it was progression. I studied linguistics in school, and then I taught for a little while, and I did human resources. And in the process of doing human resources, I started doing all the business writing for a company. So I did corporate communication, employee manuals. Memos, things like that. So all that kind of stuff that you get as an employee that you don't want to read, but you have to read. I wrote. I was one of the people who wrote all of that stuff. So I did business writing for quite a while, and I really didn't do any creative writing at all until I was in my 30s. And then I discovered fan fiction. I was always a big fantasy reader, and I discovered fan fiction. I'm like, this is amazing. And so I started writing fan fiction in the Southern Vampire Mysteries fandom. Love fan fiction. I think it's some of the absolute best practice for writers, just for fun, because it's so fun and it's so low stakes and it lets you just play around with different things. And so I was writing that, and a friend of mine who read my fan fiction said, I know you've talked about like writing your own stories, because at that point I had fan fiction was fun, but I was like getting my own story ideas, and like ironically I was writing all human fan fiction, even though I'm primarily fantasy reader. I was writing all human stuff, but I had my own like kind of fictional vampire world that I was kind of mentally creating. And I was thinking, you know what, I'll just kind of like I'll start a blog and I'll publish it on my blog. And a friend of mine, so this was back in 2010, and that was right when self-publishing and KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing, had just kind of started. I want to say like maybe 2 years before, and nobody had really, it was just starting to kind of getting going. And a friend of mine said, I get more excited when I get a new chapter of your book than the book I got from the library. Instead of publishing your original fiction on your blog, have you ever thought about like putting it all out like in a book and doing this indie publishing thing? And so that was my friend Lydia, and she was really the first person who I had never even heard of it. So about 2010, I was writing my books, and I was just doing a lot of research online, and I thought, and so I never tried to get an agent or a traditional deal or anything like that. I just, I was already so used to online publishing. Um, I thought, well, I'll just do this. I'll do this, and if anyone buys it, then score. I was gonna just put it out for free. So if anyone buys it, cool. Um, but within 6 months, I had 3 books published, and I was actually making as much as I had been when I was teaching, which is super lucky. I will say that from the top. That is, it's an extreme amount of luck. And I wrote four books in like a year and a half and only slept for about 4 hours a night, which I do not recommend anyone do ever. It was an extreme amount of work. But my son was quite young at the time. And so like I could only write when he was in bed. So that was really kind of how I started. And it's grown from then, and it's changed so much, but I love it. The minute I started writing, I thought it was just one of those light bulb moments, because I had kind of drifted from one job to the next to the next. I was always a very curious person and I loved reading, but when I started writing, it was just like, oh,
Yeah.
this is the thing.
In those 6 months, you noticed that it was leveling the same amount that you were earning in your teaching job, which is phenomenal. Yes, elements to luck, but also it just shows how much of a profound writer you have been from the very start as well. And so I'm curious as to when you started noticing the snowball effect for yourself, where you really had like perhaps an opportunity was presented to you, or somebody said something to you, and you were like, oh, shit, I'm a real author. Like, I'm an author. This is what I'm here for now.
I still have those moments where, I'm like, people are still buying my books. Okay, all right, I'll just keep going with it. Um, because I do think it's very hard. I think every creative person struggles with that, because we're doing the thing that we love, right? We're doing the thing that feels like play. And so, at least if you're doing it right, like to me, the business stuff is stressful, but the writing is still my favorite thing. People ask me a lot, like, because I write fast and I put out a lot of books, and people ask me like, how do you write that fast? And I'm like, that's my favorite thing. The business stuff is not my favorite thing, but the writing part, like you put me alone in a cabin with my keyboard and nothing to do but write for a weekend, I am happy as a clam. Yeah, exactly. So I think when you are making money and doing a thing that you love that feels like play, then you're always going to struggle a little bit, because we have so many hangups in our culture and our society about like work should be hard and work should be a struggle, and often it is, let's be honest. um but you know I'm I'm not working in mines, I'm not going out and working in the fields pulling weeds, which I did do in college, actually. I'm from a farming area, so I have worked on farms. I have done physical labor, and like to me, writing definitely still feels like I'm having fun with it. But I guess a better answer to your question would be, I think it was by about my fourth book that I really looked at how things were growing, which was like fast, but also consistent. And I thought, okay, if I'm smart about this, and if I invest in my business and invest the time, I can do this. Like I can make this work. And so there is an element of luck there, but there is also an element of planning and hard work, and treating it like a job, which I did from the very beginning. I didn't treat it like a side business. I treated it like my full-time job.
Yeah. And that can be at times very hard to transition as well, because it's very difficult at times to have that level of discipline if you are now working from home full time, you're working on your business. What should I prioritize on? It isn't only the writing then. And as you said, the business side can be stressful because you're learning a lot of things as you go as well. So how did you find, I mean, you've obviously been doing this for a while now, so you would have noticed different shifts, different changes. How have you gone with the adaptability of the publishing industry as well?
I think particularly in independent publishing, when I started out, I feel like discovery was much more organic. The algorithms at retailers were more organic. So if you bought a certain thing, you were recommended a certain thing. And so I had the benefit of word of mouth and like message boards, and the Kindle boards used to be a big thing. And I was really popular on some of the big paranormal bulletin boards and the Kindle boards. And so word of mouth was really my best advertising. I didn't pay for advertising for years and years. Now the market, completely honestly, the market is so crowded. Almost every retailer, it's about sponsored posts, and you have to pay and you have to do advertising, which is which can be effective and cannot be. You can waste a lot of money. I still say that word of mouth is your best advertising. And you can't, I get people all the time asking me like, how do you go viral? And I'm like, I have no idea. I don't think I've ever gone viral. I've had a very kind of slow and steady career, which has been great, but I mean, the book sales numbers look amazing, but you have to remember that, like, I'm putting out sometimes one year, this was foolish and I will never do it again. One year I put out 6 books in 1 year, and it was a personal challenge for myself. And I will never do it again, because it was kind of crazy, but it was more than kind of crazy. It was very crazy, and I will never do that again. But I did it. It was just like yeah, it was a personal challenge for myself.
What are your word counts roughly?
These were the novels were these were a little bit shorter novels, so they were in the 60 to like 75,000 word range. This is when I was writing a lot of paranormal women's fiction, so these are a little bit more like cozy mystery kind of vibes. So like 65 to 75,000. So those were a little bit shorter, but like it's
Okay.
still a lot. That's insane, and nobody should ever do that. Please
Okay.
don't. It's
Let's talk
very bad for your mental health.
well, let's talk about your recent release then. So, Tin God, I'm wondering if it's a bit bittersweet because it is the final installment of the Elemental Covenant series. So, tell us a little bit about the book and also how you feel about wrapping up that series.
Okay, first off, I'm very terrible at saying goodbye to characters, which is why the elemental universe has gotten to be as big as it is, because it started with 4 books. It started with A Hidden Fire, The Same Earth, The Force of Wind, and A Fall of Water, right? And those were my first 4 books. And I was like, okay, and I'm going to write these 4 books. And then I'm not going to be that writer who keeps writing the same characters forever. I'm going to go and do different things. Only I get very attached to my imaginary friends, and I'm terrible at saying goodbye. So what happens is I inevitably, so part of this was like me wanting to not say goodbye to my favorite imaginary friends. And then part of it too is I'm a huge fan of Anne Rice, and I always loved how she structured her vampire chronicles, because you have the same world, but you have kind of different series
Yeah.
and different branches and standalones within the same universe. And I thought that's a brilliant way of carrying a fictional universe forward without it feeling tired. So you can, so that's what I've done. So I had those first 4 books with Beatrice and Giovanni. And then I did, for a while, I did kind of like standalone side stories from different side characters in that world, and they got their own stories. And then I started another series set within the same world. So the Elemental Covenant is wrapped up with this book, and I was very good, and I brought it. I actually brought it. I remembered to bring it.
The colors
And
are
it's very
stunning.
beautiful. I love the cover. I think it's set in Alaska, so it's got some northern light action. And one of the main characters is a fire vampire, so she's very sparky, and I just love it. I think the cover turned out beautifully. And we did these beautiful chapter fronts too.
Oh,
So
wow. The interior is beautiful.
thank you. Yeah. So this is vellum, by the way, which I highly recommend. I've used vellum for years now. And yeah, no gatekeeping. This is 100% vellum formatting. I highly recommend it. So this story wrapped up. Um, it was a crossover novel, so it was kind of bringing together four different protagonists from two different series, and that was really fun. That was the first time I've ever done that, is actually had a crossover book. So I said goodbye to these characters, which is 100% bittersweet because they will not be main characters again. I don't think. I don't have another story for them, but hopefully they will still show up in other stories set within the same world. But I have ended series before, and it's always complicated. I ended the Cambio Spring series, which was my Shapeshifter series, and then I have, I would say, on indeterminate hiatus, my Aaron Chronicles series. So it's always hard, but you have to. Part of it is some. It depends. Sometimes it's just a creative decision where, like, I've told the story. It's done, and that's really all I have for these characters. Sometimes it's a business decision where, like, sales are falling off with this series, and so I need to end it in a good place and let it be what it is, and move on to something else. And sometimes it can be a combination of the two. So it's always bittersweet to end a series, I think. But when you have a universe like the Elemental universe, you get to come back and revisit it almost endlessly because vampires, as I point out, are immortal. So the series can be immortal too.
I love this so much. So, just for quick reference for those who are listening to, for those who don't know, what Vellum is that Elizabeth was talking about is basically, I was going to say platform. It's not a platform, it's a program, sorry, where you can
Yeah.
design your own interiors for your books. It's a fantastic resource. You do need a MacBook for it, though. There is an alternative that you can use. I think it's called Addict, maybe. It's
I'm
from
not positive. That sounds familiar though.
it's from designed from the same guy that has built KDP Rocket as well. So he does that one. But
Okay.
yeah, Vellum, we love Vellum. We love Vellum. We adore.
Yeah.
So what does your writing process look like then? Are you a plotter? Are you a pantser? Do you work 9 till 5? Are you lighting candles, singing Kumbaya before you write? What's your process?
I'm definitely a plotter. I think I know there are people who write heavy world building fantasy world by the seat of their pants, and those people fill me with anxiety. Just thinking about them. That is not me. I need to plan everything, and so I'm definitely a plotter. I have many, many notebooks filled with. I do all my pre-writing and all my notes and outlines and timelines and everything by hand. I just always have. Um, so so I have lots of notebooks, and I plan everything out. So my pre-writing process is pretty extensive, and I think that's another reason why I can write pretty fast, relatively speaking, because by the time I sit down to write, like, I really know the story, I know the characters, and so I can just, like, boom, get it on paper and well, get it into the computer. I do not write all my books by hand. Though, have you ever done narration? Have you ever narrated a book?
No, I feel like I
You've
should.
heard of that though, right?
Yeah, I've had a few authors come on here who've done it. What's it called? Dictation. And
Uh-huh.
just I just couldn't imagine getting like from my head verbally. Like when I read some of the stuff I've written, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I wrote that. If I had to say that out loud, I'd be like, delete, delete, delete.
He's like, nope, sorry. Yeah, I'm the same way because I have tried it because as you get older and when you write a lot, like, obviously, like, things like carpal tunnel and your wrist health and hand health become issues. And so, like, a part of me knows that figuring out how to dictate my books would be a very cool and amazing thing. And I do know people who do that, but I tried it. Like, I want to say, like, what it was in this series. Actually, it was in the Elemental Covenant series, and I started one book and I did, like, the first three chapters. I tried to dictate it, and it was such a mess. It was such a mess. Yeah, I don't even, yeah, that I kind of gave up because I'm the same way. Like, I don't even like, I can't listen to my own audiobooks. I have a wonderful like beta listener who listens to all of them after they get back from my narrator, and of course he has a as a a producer and a proofer, and then but then they go to you like when you self-produce you have to listen to everything. I can't do it. I tried doing it. I'm like, no, it was horrible. I wanted to die. It was like it's so cringy.
Delegation.
Yes, absolutely. I'm like, I can't do this. I can't. And my sister's like, is it bad? I'm like, no, it's not bad. It feels weird. Yeah.
I get
So
that. And I,
I
it's,
think, I suspect it's something, you hear about actors who can't watch their own movies. I
yeah.
feel like it's maybe a little bit like that. I don't know.
I agree with that. And also, I think it's interesting that you raise about also trying to change process to go to dictation as well, because I had the same
Mhm.
thing because this year, more so than ever, and same thing, I'm a very fast writer as well. And so this year I started noticing it's like, I'm hurting in my wrists, I'm hurting in my fingers, I'm cramping. And so I would go get a massage and just say, just here, just please massage this part. And I was like,
Mhm.
where am I at the moment? But it does raise slight concern for me for because obviously this is a long-term career. What
Yeah.
what do I need to change now to make sure that that doesn't become a problem in the future as well? So I think it's good to be trying different things, and maybe we just have to try delegation again. I don't know.
I think, but it is such a different process though to go directly from your brain to typing than, to brain formulate it in your head, say it, and then, but it doesn't seem like it should be that different, but it really, really is.
100%. Especially when you've
Yeah.
been having using the same process for 13 years, it's definitely going to be difficult to switch over.
But yeah, I'm a plotter, and then when I write, I think I don't have any particular triggers. When I started, I tell people all the time, when I started writing, my son was elementary school and I wrote in my kitchen. And so I kind of actually sometimes I will go to a cafe or something if I am like feeling like I need some energy because I actually write pretty well with chaos going around. I think I don't know, maybe it's ADHD or something. It's like bring on the chaos and I can think better. But more than anything, I think one of my triggers is music. I'm a huge music fan. I love all different kinds of music. And so anytime, I think it's a bit of a mental trick for me. I make a playlist for every book I write, and I start adding to that playlist during the pre-writing process. So, like, I have two different projects. Well, I have three. I have three different projects in the next year that I'm working on, and I have playlists started for all of them. I haven't started writing them yet, but I have playlists started for all of them because I will put on that playlist and I will start it at the same place every single time, and it just kind of switches me into that mode.
So, how do you then decide? Because you write multi-genre and
Mhm.
you write fast. So, how do you decide what book, what genre, what series you're going to focus on? Do you split them up a bit? Do you only focus on one series at a time? Are you obliging to traditional like contracts and such? How do you figure that out for yourself?
I don't currently have any traditional contracts, so that's not something I'm juggling at the moment. It's usually again kind of a combination of the business and the creative. Sometimes I will just decide like, oh, I haven't written in that series for a while. If I don't want that series to just fall off completely, I need to write the next book. But usually it's a bit more organic. Usually it's just, you know, I do kind of vary them. But for instance, this one, I just wrote this one and I'm going right into another. I'm actually starting a new branch in the elemental universe with a character that was in the very first series that I've been wanting to write about a little bit more. Speaking of darker romance, he's a bit of a shadier character. So I've been wanting to write about him for almost 10 years now. So his story has kind of been bubbling in the back of my head for a long time. So I'm pretty excited to start that. And then I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna be working on the second book of my time travel series. And That one's kind of unique because that one is that one's set primarily in Ethiopia. There's a lot of research involved and it's time travel. So those books just take a lot longer to write. The first book came out May of last year, and I haven't started writing the second one yet. Those are just really mentally taxing because time travel, because yeah, you really need to love time travel to write time travel. If you're not sure, don't. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of planning involved. It's a combination of the creative and the business. But usually I think for me at least it leans more toward the creative. Like it's just what do I feel compelled to write right now?
One thing, touching on that, one thing I do want to discuss, because I actually saw that you had a post recently on your blog regarding burnout. So I love discussing burnout on here. It's something that I've fallen victim to. I say victim even though I do it to myself numerous times. And I know so many, I feel like everyone within this industry has had it at some point. So, what are
Yeah.
some of the lessons that you've learned through burnout and some of the things that you now put in place to make sure that you don't hit that again?
I don't think I've really done a full flame out. I know writers who have, I have friends who have, and so when I was writing about it earlier this year, it was about avoiding it because I definitely felt myself getting to that edge where I could have thrown up my hands and said like, nope, not doing this, or nope, I'm taking a year off or whatever. And I didn't want to get there. I think anyone in again in any field, but especially in creative fields where you're putting so much of your heart and soul into what you do, you're at risk of it. And also, it is exactly what you said. When you are working for yourself, you use we use self-imposed deadlines to keep us on task, but sometimes in my case, I had set a deadline for this book, a pre-order deadline that was a hard deadline, and I was trying to move it up a month. Like I had it in my head that I needed to publish a month early, and I realized no, I didn't need to publish a year or a month early. I was pushing myself for no reason except ego, maybe pride a little bit, that I just wanted to get it done. Stress in other areas of life that I was kind of pushing onto that. And so I think it's important to know yourself. It's important to create realistic deadlines for yourself and just keep gauging where you are personally so that you don't hit that point, and make sure you have areas of your life that are refilling your creative well, whether that means walking regularly. I'm a big proponent of walkers. I think there's kind of a special relationship between writers and walking.
I know I walk to brainstorm.
Yeah, I really do. And if you look at like writers through history, a lot of them were really avid walkers. I think there is something really amazing. And not even to like have a directed walk to say like I'm walking for this amount of time or this distance, just ramble. And if you can ramble someplace that is green and wild, all the better. Um, walk, get outside, which is difficult when it's 100 and something, 43 degrees outside. That's it's not the most fun time to take a walk, but have something, make sure you're still reading, because I think that's something that often falls by the wayside when you're writing. You don't read very much, and however that I find it just beneficial to do things that are creative but not in your profession. So whether that's gardening or crocheting or cooking or anything that feels creative to you that's not writing. If you're a writer, paint, even if you're bad at it, take a pottery class, but find other kind of modalities of creativity to feed yourself, because I think that's one of the ways that you can avoid burnout and just get out of your head too. Like it's really hard not to live in your head all the time.
I agree with that, especially when it can be such an isolating role as well. Obviously, we do eventually find our author tribe, our group, our people who we can discuss. But when you're in that writing zone, you're the only person there. When you're the business owner, when you're thinking of what do I need to do next, when you're trying to pre-schedule 12 months ahead, it can be very isolating. So I think, as you said, it's a really good advice to have another creative outlet as well. I think that's really, really good advice.
Good. And have friends, like not that online friends are not real friends, but I highly, highly recommend cultivating friendships as much as you possibly can, where you're going out to the pub or going over to somebody's house for wine night or whatever that is. I just think that's so, so important.
So what Elizabeth is saying is any type of drinking is approved. No matter where it is, no matter who it's with, do it.
Come away, coffee. It could be coffee. It could be coffee as well. We're big coffee fans out here. I think the other, just creatively speaking, the other time that I felt like I was getting really blocked creatively was toward the end of kind of I don't want to say the end of 2020. No, it was more like the middle of 2021, where I hadn't really done any traveling for about a year and a half because of the pandemic. And because I, had just been stuck and my son was doing independent study school. He was in high school at the time, but he'd been doing independent study, which he excelled at, actually. He loved it, but it was a little bit more, I didn't have as much independent time. But mostly I hadn't traveled, and we took our first trip to Ethiopia in the summer of 2021. And and I just started breathing again. I was just like, oh, new faces, new smells, new music, new experiences, just something new. And it was a really good reminder for me that if I'm going to write new worlds and new people and new stories, I need to be feeding myself with new experiences as well.
I agree with that 100%.
So
So,
be curious, get out there, do things as much as you can, even if you can't travel internationally. Just, join a club, discover your own hometown, whatever it is, but do new things. It's really, really important creatively.
what would you say then that your biggest advice would be for authors who are trying to release a new book, whether it's their debut or their 10th book? What are the things that you always have set in place before you release?
It took me a while to find a team of editors and proofreaders and beta readers and all of that I could really rely on. So that is always going to be your first job as a writer, is getting your support staff. So getting particularly an editor. I have two editors. I have a content editor and a line editor who I've worked with for many years. Amy Sizell is my content editor, and she's also a wonderful writer. She writes urban fantasy and paranormal romance. Um, and then Anne Victory is my line editor, and she is also amazing. I've worked with her almost 10 years. So finding a group of professionals is absolutely job number one. Per, you know, with my first books, all of the money that I made for my first book went into editing my second book. And I've gotten better, I've gotten better professionals, and I've gotten better as a writer over the years. So that grows, and that's kind of gradual. So make sure you have a team in place. If you're a debut writer, whatever budget you have, make sure you put into editing first and promotion second, because your book is really your ultimate advertisement. Because you can have the absolute greatest promotional plan in place, but if your book isn't good, if it's not well edited, if it's not good quality, people are going to take a look at the reviews that say I could barely get through this because of all the typos, and they're gonna turn off, and so all that advertising money is going to go to waste. So I really, really, really advise particularly if you're a newer author, put all that money, whatever budget you can put into editing first. And after that, you can start building a budget for promotional and PR and stuff like that. I didn't, all of that stuff for me kind of happened over time. Because I wrote my books first, and it was probably, I had 4 or 5 books in before I even thought about trying to do any kind of organized promotional stuff with blog tours, or I did have a social media presence, but that wasn't my focus. My focus was just writing the books and putting more books out, and that was probably for my first 4 titles. So, make sure you have a good team in place to make it the best book you possibly can. When it comes to do as much as you can organically, know when it comes to picking a book cover, because that's your second biggest advertisement, right? Your book is the first, is the product, but the second biggest one is your cover. And do not believe anyone that says they don't judge a book by its cover, because they absolutely do, even if they don't mean to. They judge a book by its cover. And so find a great cover artist. There's so many out there at all different price points. But don't just find a book cover that you love. Find one that's really going to signal to readers what your genre is. So you need to be looking at what is popular in your genre, what is going on, what are trends. I switch, for instance, with my romance series, I switch from photograph covers to animated covers for one series, because my book sales went up. And some people are like, but I miss the old covers. I understand that, but I need to find new readers. And if the genre is trending this way, don't be afraid of being trendy. Have your own personal style when it comes to your makeup or your fashion or whatever, but when it comes to books, you need to understand what is trending and what is popular. It's not just about you. If you want, I mean, it can be. If you don't care about selling your book and you just want to make yourself happy, then pick whatever book cover makes you happiest. But if you want to sell your book, you need to be aware of genre conventions. You need to be aware of all those little signals that are telling readers what to expect when it comes to your book. And so finding a great cover artist is really important. So find your editing team, find your cover artist. And then I think once you have that together, then you start, if you're a debut author, start treating it professionally. There's a lot of things you can do promotionally for yourself. You don't have to pay anyone to do. You can reach out to book blogs and influencers online. You can do all that outreach. We were talking before we started recording, when I first started publishing, indie publishing was not very well accepted. So I reached out to, I tried to do 5 every single day. I would look at different book blogs, because blogging was like the big thing back in 2011. I'm dating myself a little bit, but I looked at different book blogs and I'm like, okay, what are they reading? What do they like? And so I targeted, okay, I think, don't just hit up everybody, hit up people that are interested in your genre and your type of book. And then email them, have a cover and a synopsis and, kind of what your book is about, have that ready to go, have a nice advanced copy of your book that you can offer them. You don't have to send paper arcs. Paper arcs are really expensive, you guys. If you are a new author, if you're on a limited budget, don't feel like you have to send out paper arcs. Don't spend tons of money on that, because honestly, I will tell you, a lot of book bloggers, they get absolutely tons of those books and they don't often know where to store them.
Yeah.
So a lot of bloggers will, whether they're bookstagrammers, whether on BookTok, a lot of them really do prefer ebooks because it's just easier. I mean, not if you're like a big time author and you've got a fancy new release or especially, I mean, everybody loves that, right? But if you are new and you're just getting please don't focus on doing really fancy editions. You can send out ebook arcs, and most influencers and book talkers and bookstagrammers are totally happy to get an ebook. So it's, pick where you're, if you have a limited promotion budget, and most authors do, let's be honest, pick wisely. Pick wisely what you're spending your money on.
So for you, 13, almost 13 years in, but we'll be celebrating
Mhm.
soon. What has been your greatest challenge and your greatest achievement so far in your author career?
I'm not gonna lie, hitting the USA Today list for the first time was huge. It was for my book Midnight Labyrinth, and I was really proud. It was a full price title. It wasn't on sale or anything like that. It was a full price title. It was a new release, and it hit in the top, I can't even remember, but it was in the top 100. And I was so thrilled. I think some of my earlier books would have hit the USA Today list, but they were constantly changing at the beginning of my career, like how they were counting ebooks. Like nobody really knew how to, whether those were going to count as much as paperbacks and that kind of thing. So when I did finally hit it, I was really proud of myself. I thought it was a huge deal. And I felt very, very accomplished. But I think also bringing that first series to a close in a satisfying way creatively was really huge for me, because I had started a series, I had finished a series, and if I didn't write anything else, I had left those characters in that series in a really great place. And I felt super proud of that. So those were, I think, two of my biggest accomplishments, like creatively and then business wise. Um, Challenges, I think the biggest challenge is just keeping up with a publishing environment that is changing so fast. And if you feel like it has sped up and things are changing faster, I agree with you. I think things are changing incredibly fast, and they're going to continue to change fast. And you have to be really light on your feet. The minute you think you have it figured out, it's probably going to change. I wish it wasn't so, but I think, like anything right now, any commodity, and I guess our books are our creative works, but in the greater market, they are a commodity. And I think if you talk to anyone in music or fashion or any other creative field, in film and TV, trends and tastes are changing so fast. Um, and I don't know why that is, but I think it becomes even more important in that case to write what you really love and that you're really passionate about, and not try and follow trends. Because if you try and follow trends in your writing, you might hit it sometimes, but you're going to be constantly exhausted trying to keep up. I think it's way more important to develop your own voice, your own unique voice, and your own writing that you just really, really love. Because I definitely, like, I write some contemporary romance, and I write the majority of my stuff is fantasy. And then I've got the one sci-fi kind of, it's sci-fi fantasy, the time travel. It's more on the fantasy side than the side, like magic, not machines, if that makes sense. So it's sci-fi, but it's magic, not machines. And so, so I write across genres, and I have a lot of, I have some readers who, like, they're just fantasy readers, and that's all they want to read. I have very few romance readers actually who are not also fantasy fans. I have very few people who like only read contemporary romance. A lot of them, I feel like romance readers are pretty open to trying different things. There's a joke there. I'm gonna keep going though.
I'll
Uh,
take a sip of my coffee so I don't say anything.
yeah. Um, But I think if you are writing something that you love and you're passionate about, and it has your voice, then the readers that you develop are much more likely to kind of follow you, whatever genre you write in. So I think that's really important.
Are you ready to go on a speed date with me?
I am. I'm ready to go on a speed date with you.
Yay! I've lit a candle, I've created
I
ambience.
love it. I have a Pepsi here.
I'm like, all right. But
It,
basically,
it felt a little bit early for a beer, but I mean,
I
I can't grab one.
I mean, I thought you would have. I mean, I've definitely put liquor in my coffee. No, I'm kidding. I mean, it's Friday here. Why not? But
It's still Thursday here. You're a bit ahead of me. Speaking of time travel,
there you are. The future
you
is
are a
looking,
bit ahead of me. That's
it's
true.
looking very cold, is all I'm going to tell you.
Don't blame you for the liquor then.
So basically, what it is five rapid questions. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Let's do it.
Let's go. What is the clumsiest moment you've ever had?
Oh, okay. The thing that jumps to mind is I'm just terrible at catching things. Terrible at catching keys, a bottle of beer, like a can of soda. No, I'm terrible at catching things. Please don't ever throw something valuable at me. I will drop it.
How many
I will
times have you
100%
been hit
drop
in
it.
the face? Like, if you've got
What?
one of these, have you been hit in the face a few times?
I have been hit in the head more than once. Yeah, it was a softball once when I was in high school. But yeah, keys have hit my face. I have learned to duck as well. I'm pretty good at ducking. But every now and then, like especially my husband and son both try and do. I have managed to catch a few things over the years. I've gotten better, mostly because they won't leave me alone about it. But for them, please don't ever throw a child at me. I will do my absolute best to catch the child, but there are no guarantees. There are no guarantees at all. I'm so sorry.
Disclaimer, don't throw a child.
Please don't throw a child at me for
What?
multiple reasons, but probably because I will drop it. I dropped my own son once. He didn't exactly drop, like he was swaddled, and it was when he was very small. So it was kind of more of a roll. Like it was a burrito roll down my leg. I managed to like stick my legs out. He was at that age where he was like arching his back all the time, and he just like, whoo, went right off. I did manage to like stick my legs out so it was a gentle roll down to the floor, but I absolutely did drop my kid once. Yeah.
All right, so
He's studying engineering in college. He's fine. He's fine. No permanent damage.
what are the three words that best describe you?
Mm. I mean, obviously clumsy. No. I'm it's just the catching thing. I think curious. I'm a curious person. Distracted. So sorry. I can be very distracted. And then let's say game. I'm game. I'm ready. Like I like if you suggest something new to me, I will probably go for it. I'm ready for adventure.
I love that.
I'm up for it.
What is the song that best describes you?
Oh gosh. Oh, okay. This just popped into my head. Okay. I love Pink. It's probably not even my favorite songwriter. I love because I love maybe my favorite songwriter is Brandy Carlisle. But you know the that Pink song Raise Your Glass. Raise
Yeah,
your glass if you're right in all the wrong ways. Yes. That's what I think that's what I strive to be, right in all the wrong ways.
I love that. Who has been your favorite character to write and why?
So what probably my favorite character to write is shows up in this book, Tenzin. She's a 5,000-year-old vampire. She has a very different take on pretty much everything because she's very old. Um, she's like, you know what? She's like id personified. She has very few filters, like pretty much no filters, actually. Like if she thinks it, she will say it almost all the time. She has very little compunction about lying. Oh, she's so horrible. She's so horrible, but I love her. She has this very strange sense of justice and morality. She's horribly difficult to write, but also maybe for that reason I love her the most. She's hard to write. I'm not gonna lie, but she's probably shown up in the most number of my books as well. She's a big character in the Elemental universe.
Love
So.
that. What is a unique talent or skill set that you have that not a lot of people know about? It's definitely not catching.
Not catching. No, definitely not that. Um, no, you want to know something funny though?
Yes.
I was a high school catcher on my softball team. No,
No.
I'm dead serious because like if I'm there and if I have a giant glove in front of me, it's fine. But if you just randomly throw things at me, I'm not prepared. Okay. I'm not prepared. Anyway, okay. Okay, I'll mention two things. I used to be a competitive swimmer when I was in high school. I was quite a good swimmer. Excellent backstroke. I've got these big manly shoulders, so I got the good backstroke shoulders. And then I studied piano for years and years. So I that just jumped into my mind because my husband has recently been encouraging me to start playing again, which I haven't for many years, but I did. I loved it. I begged my parents to let me study piano, and I'm actually that weird kid who loved all the classical music. So yeah, my piano teacher loved me. So yeah, so that I still play pretty decent piano, and I'm an excellent backstroker.
There you go.
No jokes on that one.
You're gonna get me
The
in trouble
actual
here.
swing. Yeah.
I have had so much fun today. Thank you for coming on and let us know, obviously, what's coming out next. What can we look forward to, and where do we find you?
I am on, well, I've already told you, I'm on all of the social networks, but you can usually find me under E Hunter Wright. So like Instagram, TikTok, look for E Hunter Wrights, and I'm there. And Elizabeth Hunter Author on Facebook. I have taken a bit of a break after this one, but I'm starting work on the next Elemental story, and I don't have a title for it yet. Don't have a title for it at all. You can find, if you look at elizabethhunter.com, you can find all of my books. I have a direct store as well. I have a Shopify store, so you can buy ebook bundles from me directly, which I highly recommend. And yeah, so Tin got us out. This series is complete. If you want to start at the beginning, you can go back to the very, very beginning with The Hidden Fire, or you can start at the beginning of this series, which is Saint's Passage. And these are kind of like, these are paranormal vampire mysteries, but they have kind of a true crime vibe too, because they're solving like hit and missing persons cases. So that was really fun with this series. Um, so that's where you can find me, and I'll have my next time travel book, Child of Ashes, will be out next year. My first time travel book, The 13th Month, is available now, so you can grab that if you're into the magic, not machines sci-fi.
Thank you so much for coming on, and I'll put all those links below. And who
Cool.
knows, maybe I'll get you on next year and we'll see where you're at.
You might catch me in Ethiopia because I'm there part of the year.
Hopefully.
We'll have to figure out the time difference on that one too.
That sounds so good. Well, I'm going to love you and leave you guys. Bye.